Do not mistake what is unfolding today for another ordinary astrological event, because the atmosphere surrounding this moment carries a kind of intensity that refuses to stay hidden. Before this day comes to an end, something in the heavens is reaching a precise point of alignment, and when it does, you may discover that the person standing on the other side of this experience no longer thinks, feels, or responds in the same way. This is not the kind of energy that quietly slips into your life without leaving a mark. It arrives with purpose, and it reaches directly into the places inside you that have remained silent for far too long. There is a doorway opening, not only in the sky, but within your own awareness. And as it opens, a longing that you believed had disappeared may suddenly return with remarkable strength. Perhaps you convinced yourself that you had outgrown it. Perhaps you buried it after disappointment, rejection, or simply the passage of time. Yet what rises now refuses to remain hidden any longer. The surprising part is not that it comes back. The surprising part is that you will finally stop resisting it. Instead of pushing it away, you may recognize it as something that has been waiting patiently for the exact moment when you are ready to receive it again. Today, on July 2nd, Venus forms an exact trine with Black Moon Lilith across the fire signs, creating a rare geometric relationship that carries extraordinary implications for your relationships, your personal magnetism, and the way others instinctively respond to your presence. The influence of this alignment stands apart from anything experienced earlier this year. Among all 12 zodiac signs, 3 are especially positioned to radiate an almost impossible level of attraction. The people around them may struggle to explain why they suddenly feel drawn closer. Logic will offer very few answers. They will simply recognize an undeniable pull without understanding its source. Yet this moment did not appear without preparation. There is a deeper reason this energetic doorway is opening now, and its timing is directly connected to another powerful event that unfolded only hours earlier. Before this opportunity emerged, something painful was awakened within the collective emotional landscape. An old wound was exposed instead of concealed. The portal now opening does not erase that wound, but it provides the exact energetic condition needed for healing to begin. If you have recently carried an uncomfortable feeling that everyone can somehow see through you, if your insecurities have felt unusually close to the surface, if your vulnerability has become impossible to ignore, understand that these sensations are not random emotional fluctuations. They are connected to a much larger movement taking place above you. Once you understand why these feelings intensified throughout this week, the confusion surrounding your emotional state may dissolve almost instantly. Before exploring that deeper explanation, however, it is essential to understand the nature of what is becoming available today. Many people will overlook this moment entirely. They will hear the word portal and dismiss it as another fashionable expression repeated across social media. They will assume nothing meaningful is happening and continue scrolling without another thought. By the time they recognize the significance of what they ignored, this brief window will already have passed. Moments like this are not endlessly available. The heavens are arranging themselves into a pattern that appears only on rare occasions, and recognizing it while it is active makes all the difference. This is not merely Venus expressing her graceful qualities while traveling through Leo, nor is it simply Black Moon Lilith creating disruption from Sagittarius. The true significance lies in the exact trine connecting these two celestial points. One side of this alignment is represented by Venus, the planetary force associated with beauty, affection, attraction, pleasure, desire, value, and everything that feels worthy of appreciation and love. Opposite her energetic role stands Black Moon Lilith, symbolizing every aspect of yourself that society encouraged you to hide because it seemed overwhelming, excessive, rebellious, untamed, or even dangerous. Venus naturally longs to experience love, admiration, and genuine appreciation. Lilith, however, refuses to sacrifice authenticity simply to receive acceptance. These two inner voices often compete for influence within the human heart. One part of you wants to be embraced and chosen. Another part refuses to become smaller just to earn that embrace. One side seeks belonging, while the other protects freedom at any cost. Living between those opposing desires creates an invisible emotional strain that many people carry every single day without consciously recognizing it. You attempt to become what others expect, while quietly protecting the parts of yourself that fear rejection. Over time, that conflict becomes exhausting because it demands constant self-editing. Yet today, at 3:30 during the night, this internal struggle reaches a temporary resolution. The exact trine removes resistance instead of increasing it. Rather than forcing these opposing energies to compete, it allows them to cooperate with remarkable ease. Suddenly, the characteristics you once concealed in romantic relationships, close friendships, professional environments, or everyday conversations become the very qualities that generate fascination in others. The pieces of yourself you believed were too intense, too unconventional, or too difficult to understand transform into the source of your greatest personal magnetism. Instead of pushing people away, your authenticity begins drawing them closer. Because this alignment unfolds through the fire signs of Leo and Sagittarius, its effects do not develop slowly or remain hidden beneath the surface. Fire reveals itself immediately. Fire announces its presence without hesitation. Its influence becomes visible, expressive, and impossible to overlook. You may notice the shift within your own body before your mind can explain it. Others may sense the difference the moment you enter a room, even if no words are exchanged. That quiet but unmistakable change in your presence becomes part of the story unfolding today. Now return to the emotional weight many people have carried throughout the past several days. If you have questioned your own value, if vulnerability has seemed unusually intense, if looking at your own reflection somehow stirred feelings of absence or inadequacy, understand that these experiences were preparing you for this exact moment. They were not meaningless emotional swings, nor were they evidence that something had gone wrong in your life. Only hours before the Venus and Black Moon Lilith trine became exact, Jupiter formed a powerful square with Chiron. Jupiter, associated with expansion, growth, belief, and the widening of experience, collided with Chiron, the celestial point representing humanity's deepest emotional wound, and the places where healing is often born through pain. This challenging square unfolded through Aries and Leo, signs deeply connected with identity, visibility, self-expression, confidence, and the fundamental right to exist fully without apology. The result was unmistakable. The universe removed every layer of protection covering your hidden insecurities. Emotional defenses that once kept painful beliefs safely buried were stripped away. Every lingering fear connected to being seen became harder to ignore. Every doubt surrounding whether you were remarkable enough, lovable enough, valuable enough, or deserving of attention rose into conscious awareness. The discomfort you experienced was not punishment. It was exposure before transformation. The wound had to become visible before the portal opening today could begin revealing the strength that had always existed beneath it. And understanding that sequence becomes the key that unlocks everything that follows. Right now, countless people are sitting inside an emotional space they can barely explain. They feel more vulnerable than usual. Confidence seems harder to access. Old doubts have returned without invitation, making them question their value, their direction, and even the parts of themselves they thought had already healed. It can feel as though something invisible has stripped away every layer of protection, leaving them standing in full view of fears they have not confronted for a very long time. Yet what appears to be emotional collapse is not meaningless suffering. There is intention behind it. The wound that surfaced was never meant to remain open forever. It emerged because something arriving today was designed to meet it. The exact trine between Venus and Black Moon Lilith serves as the energetic response to the powerful square formed between Jupiter and Chiron only hours earlier. The earlier alignment expanded insecurity, exposing hidden pain connected to identity and self-worth. This new alignment answers that exposure with transformation. Rather than simply easing discomfort or covering emotional scars, it changes the way those wounds function inside you. The same vulnerability that recently felt unbearable now becomes a source of unmistakable personal power. What felt like weakness begins revealing itself as authenticity, and authenticity carries a magnetic force that cannot be manufactured. Looking back, the emotional intensity of this week was never punishment. It was preparation. The discomfort cleared the way for something much greater. This portal offers the reward, but only for those willing to recognize what is unfolding and move alongside its current instead of resisting it. There is another reason this moment feels so significant. Something you believed had been left behind is beginning to return. Think about the desire that once filled your heart so completely that it frightened you. Perhaps it was a dream so meaningful that failure seemed impossible to survive. Perhaps it was a relationship whose emotional depth convinced you that walking away would be safer than remaining vulnerable. Perhaps it was an image of your future self that appeared during a rare moment of complete honesty, only for you to bury it, because living that truth demanded more courage than you believed you possessed. Whatever form it took, that desire never truly disappeared. It simply waited beneath layers of fear and self-protection. Under today's transit, it rises again with renewed strength, refusing to remain silent. The psychological process behind this is surprisingly direct. The shame connected to wanting what your heart genuinely desires begins to dissolve. Whether your longing involves an unconventional relationship, an ambitious professional path, a life that refuses to follow familiar expectations, or a connection that challenges everything you were taught was acceptable, the emotional burden attached to those desires temporarily loosens its hold. Once shame releases its grip, everything begins changing from the inside out. You stop feeling obligated to justify every decision. You stop searching for approval before honoring your own truth. You stop editing your personality so that everyone else can remain comfortable around you. Without realizing it, you stop performing. In that exact moment, your presence becomes impossible to ignore. The remarkable lesson carried by the Venus and Black Moon Lilith trine is that genuine attraction has never depended upon flawless appearances or carefully constructed perfection. Human beings are naturally drawn towards someone whose inner and outer selves finally become one. They respond to authenticity that no longer asks permission to exist. They notice the individual who has stopped hiding behind expectations and quietly radiates the confidence of someone who understands themselves on a level that many people still fear reaching. That is the extraordinary gift offered through today's portal. It does not create an entirely different identity. It does not magically transform your appearance or replace your personality with someone new. Instead, it removes the barriers separating you from the version of yourself that has always existed beneath years of adaptation, fear, and emotional performance. Once that authentic self steps forward without apology, its impact becomes unforgettable. What follows makes this moment even more important, because today's alignment is not an isolated event floating independently across the calendar. It represents the beginning of a sequence whose next chapter arrives only 48 hours later. On July 4th, Mars forms a conjunction with Uranus in Gemini. Mars embodies decisive movement, direct action, courage, separation, and the willingness to move before receiving anyone else's permission. Uranus represents disruption, revolution, unexpected breakthroughs, and the force that destroys patterns which have become stagnant. When these two powerful energies unite, change accelerates with astonishing speed. Situations that appeared stable can transform almost instantly. Relationships may reach sudden endings. Career paths can shift in directions no one anticipated. A single conversation lasting less than 5 minutes may completely alter the future of a partnership. Decisions that seemed impossible at the beginning of the week suddenly become unmistakably clear by Friday. Individuals finally pack their belongings after delaying the choice for months. Messages repeatedly rewritten in private are finally sent. People leave circumstances they once believed they would tolerate forever, because something inside them refuses to remain silent any longer. This is exactly why today's Venus and Black Moon-Lilith portal carry such enormous significance. Whatever awakens inside you on July 2nd, whatever forgotten desire rises back into awareness, whatever authentic version of yourself finally receives permission to breathe again. The Mars and Uranus conjunction on July 4th becomes the force that turns inner realization into external action. Today's alignment transforms your emotional landscape. The alignment arriving 2 days later transforms your physical reality. Insight becomes movement. Recognition becomes decision. Internal truth becomes visible change. Yet this sequence also contains an important warning. If today's portal reveals something essential and you immediately suppress it because fear feels safer than honesty, then the energy arriving on July 4th expresses itself differently. Instead of becoming the author of change, you become its recipient. Rather than consciously choosing a new direction, circumstances may choose for you. Instead of walking away because your heart finally gained clarity, life may remove the foundation beneath your feet without asking permission. The experience shifts from liberation into disruption. Everything depends upon a single decision made while today's portal remains open. Will you trust what this alignment reveals about your deepest truth, or will you convince yourself that what you felt was easier to ignore than to embrace? Every zodiac sign will experience the influence of this remarkable portal. But for 3 specific signs, its magnetic effect becomes extraordinarily powerful. And that is where the story continues. Although every zodiac sign will experience this portal in some meaningful way, each person feeling forgotten desires rise back into awareness, while old shame begins losing its influence. 3 signs stand closer to the heart of this extraordinary fire trine than the rest. For these individuals, the transformation does not remain hidden inside the emotional world. It becomes visible through their presence, their choices, and the way other people instinctively respond to them. Long before they fully recognize what has changed within themselves, those around them will already sense that something is undeniably different. The shift speaks louder than words ever could. Leo, this moment arrives as a profound awakening centered entirely on your own identity. Venus is traveling through your sign, while Black Moon Lilith forms an exact trine from your 5th house, the realm associated with romance, creative expression, pleasure, and the fearless expression of your authentic self. Every layer of this alignment shines directly upon you. It illuminates your presence, your physical expression, your confidence, and the image you project into the world. Yet beneath the strength that others admire, there has often been a quieter fear that rarely reaches the surface. You have spent so much of your life inspiring others with warmth, generosity, creativity, and charisma that somewhere along the journey, a hidden question began following you. If the performance ended, would the love remain? If the spotlight disappeared, would people still choose you? If you stopped dazzling everyone around you, would they continue seeing your value? The Venus and Black Moon Lilith trine arrives with an answer that reaches deeper than reassurance. On July 2nd, something inside your emotional foundation rearranges itself. The need to constantly earn affection begins disappearing. You no longer feel compelled to carefully manage every impression or shape yourself according to the expectations surrounding you. You stop measuring every word before speaking. You stop producing your brilliance so that others never feel uncomfortable standing beside it. Instead, you allow yourself to exist exactly as you are. The remarkable irony is that this honesty makes you even more captivating than any performance ever could. The less energy you spend trying to attract attention, the more naturally attention follows you. What others begin noticing is no longer carefully crafted confidence. They are witnessing genuine presence, and authentic presence carries a power that cannot be imitated. Around this period, you may suddenly feel inspired to change something about your appearance in a way that feels bold, expressive, and unmistakably personal. Trust that instinct instead of questioning it. The impulse reflects this portal working through your life, encouraging you to reveal what has always existed beneath years of careful presentation. You are not becoming someone different. You are finally allowing the original version of yourself to step into the light. That version no longer seeks approval because it naturally commands respect without asking for it. Sagittarius, your experience unfolds through an entirely different doorway, yet it carries equal intensity. Black Moon. Lilith has remained in your sign since late 2025, patiently uncovering every desire you once abandoned because someone convinced you it was unrealistic, excessive, unconventional, or impossible. Layer by layer, she has revealed every compromise that slowly separated you from your own truth. Every time you chose comfort instead of authenticity. Every time you ignored your instincts to satisfy someone else's expectations. Another piece of your spirit quietly disappeared beneath the surface. Now Venus forms an exact trine from your 9th house, the domain connected with philosophy, higher understanding, distant horizons, spiritual truth, exploration, and everything that reminds you life is larger than familiar boundaries. As these energies cooperate, something extraordinary begins happening inside you. The embarrassment you once carried about wanting too much simply dissolves. The guilt surrounding your need for freedom loses its authority. The belief that your restless spirit somehow made you difficult to love evaporates because you finally recognize it was never an objective truth. It was inherited conditioning, repeated often enough that it eventually sounded like your own voice. This portal burns through those limitations with astonishing speed. During this alignment, your attractiveness comes from an unexpected place. It is not created by seeking attention or asking anyone to understand you. Instead, people become fascinated because they encounter someone completely devoted to their own path. There is an intoxicating quality in meeting a person whose identity no longer depends upon external validation. Your independence becomes magnetic precisely because it is genuine. Others are drawn toward the certainty with which you pursue your beliefs, your vision, and your personal freedom. The honesty that once unsettled people suddenly feels refreshing. Your unwillingness to compromise your spirit no longer appears threatening. Instead, it becomes deeply inspiring. Everything about you that seemed overwhelming to those incapable of appreciating your nature transforms into the exact reason the right individuals feel compelled to move closer. As new people enter your life during this period, observe them carefully. They are not interested in controlling your freedom or limiting your growth. They arrive because they recognize the same fire burning inside themselves, and they possess the capacity to walk beside your spirit instead of attempting to contain it. Aries, your transformation arrives through decisive movement. Even though neither Venus nor Black Moon Lilith currently occupies your sign, the exact fire trine channels powerful energy into both your 5th house of passion and your 9th house of expansion. Together, these areas become intensely activated, creating an unmistakable call toward action. The greatest change does not appear in your circumstances first. It appears inside your relationship with fear. The anxiety surrounding rejection simply loses its influence. It does not gradually become quieter. It switches off altogether. Conversations you have rehearsed countless times suddenly become easy to begin. The person you have wanted to approach no longer feels unreachable. The opportunity you have analyzed repeatedly stops requiring endless calculation because your instincts finally become louder than your doubts. At the same time, your ruling planet Mars is forming a square to the lunar nodes while also moving toward its conjunction with Uranus on July 4th. The entire cosmic atmosphere encourages bold movement without hesitation. Mars supplies fearless action, while the approaching conjunction with Uranus prepares the conditions for rapid external change. Within this larger sequence, today's Venus and Black Moon-Lilith Portal performs an essential role. It surrounds your courage with irresistible authenticity, ensuring that your confidence is experienced not as unnecessary aggression, but as natural conviction. Instead of pushing people away, your willingness to move first inspires trust. Others respond because your actions reflect complete alignment between desire and identity. The fire awakening within you no longer asks whether the moment is right. It recognizes that the moment has already arrived, and everything that follows depends upon whether you choose to step into it. For Aries, this brief but powerful window transforms boldness into an undeniable source of attraction. At a time when so many people hide behind emotional distance, carefully calculated replies, mixed signals, and the illusion that appearing unavailable somehow creates value, your energy moves in the opposite direction. You no longer circle around what you want. You move toward it with remarkable clarity. There is no elaborate strategy, no endless second-guessing, no attempt to protect yourself by pretending you care less than you actually do. You speak honestly, act decisively, and allow your intentions to be seen without wrapping them in layers of uncertainty. That fearless transparency awakens something deeply instinctive in the people who encounter you. It reaches beyond logic into a place that remembers what genuine confidence feels like. There is something timeless about witnessing someone pursue their desires without shame, hesitation, or apology. Others sense that certainty before they fully understand why it affects them so strongly. Your confidence does not pressure anyone into responding. Instead, it creates an atmosphere where your conviction becomes impossible to ignore. Rather than persuading people to recognize your value, you naturally embody it. And that quiet certainty often dissolves resistance before rational thought even has the opportunity to intervene. As this portal amplifies your authentic courage, people respond not because they were convinced, but because they suddenly recognize a level of self-trust they rarely encounter. Yet as significant as today's portal may be, it represents only the beginning of a much larger unfolding story. The energetic doorway opening on July 2nd does not simply appear and disappear without consequence. Whatever awakens inside you during this alignment enters a period of examination over the weeks that follow. The universe begins asking whether the desire returning to your heart is truly part of your authentic path or merely the excitement of a temporary emotional high. By July 9th, Venus forms a challenging aspect with Saturn, the planetary force associated with structure, responsibility, reality, commitment, and the lessons that cannot be avoided. This encounter introduces an entirely different question. Once the emotional intensity settles, can what you discovered continue existing within everyday life? Can the longing that felt so powerful during the portal remain alive when practical responsibilities replace emotional excitement? Can your truth survive after inspiration gives way to routine? Soon afterward, Venus moves into Virgo, shifting the emotional landscape from passionate fire into grounded earth. The dramatic emotional momentum characterizing the beginning of July gradually gives way to the practical realities of daily living. Dreams encounter schedules. Inspiration meets responsibility. Desire meets consistency. Many people misunderstand this transition, believing the universe is withdrawing its support or punishing them for wanting something meaningful. In reality, the opposite is taking place. These later transits are not designed to destroy authentic desires. They exist to reveal whether those desires are rooted deeply enough to become part of your real life. If the longing that resurfaced during the Venus and Black Moon Lilith trine truly emerged from the deepest and most honest part of your soul, then it remains steady throughout Saturn's examination. It adapts to Virgo's practical influence instead of disappearing beneath it. It becomes something tangible rather than remaining only an emotional experience. If, however, the desire was simply fueled by excitement, ego, or temporary fascination without genuine roots, the following weeks gradually expose its instability. Without force or drama, it quietly fades because it was never meant to become permanent. For that reason, today's portal deserves your full awareness. Observe carefully what rises from within you. Every returning dream is not automatically meant to become your future. Yet the desires that make you feel more complete, more honest, and more connected to your authentic identity deserve careful attention. Those are the longings that resonate beyond emotion and settle into the deepest part of your being. They carry the unmistakable feeling of recognition rather than fantasy. It is almost as though the universe is placing something precious back into your hands and gently reminding you that you released it long before its time had truly arrived. When you step back and observe the first week of July as a complete sequence rather than a collection of unrelated transits, an extraordinary pattern becomes visible. The square between Jupiter and Chiron tears open long, hidden emotional wounds connected with confidence, identity, and self-belief. Immediately afterward, the exact trine between Venus and Black Moon Lilith fills those exposed spaces with the fire of radical authenticity and unapologetic self-acceptance. Then, on July 4th, the conjunction between Mars and Uranus in Gemini transforms internal realization into decisive external action, breaking stagnant patterns that have remained untouched for far too long. Finally, the Sun forms a square with Saturn on July 6th, requiring every new realization to be supported by integrity, maturity, and genuine commitment. Together, these events create far more than isolated astrological moments. They form an intentional process of dismantling outdated patterns before constructing something stronger in their place. At its deepest level, this sequence reshapes the relationship you have with your desires, your connections with others, and the hidden aspects of yourself that have remained locked behind years of fear, conditioning, and self-protection. Many people will move through this week believing everything around them has become unpredictable. They will interpret emotional intensity as instability, unexpected conversations as misfortune, and sudden changes in relationships as evidence that life has become chaotic. They will see only disruption because they cannot yet recognize the design beneath it. You now have the opportunity to view the same events from a different perspective. Instead of seeing disorder, you can recognize deliberate structure. Instead of assuming everything is falling apart, you can understand that every shift belongs to a much larger pattern, guiding you towards something far more authentic than what existed before. The Venus and Black Moon Lilith Portal does not demand that you invent an entirely different identity. It asks something far simpler and infinitely more courageous. It asks you to stop maintaining a version of yourself that no longer reflects your truth. It invites you to look directly at the desire you have repeatedly avoided and realize that it has never existed to sabotage your life. It has quietly served as your inner compass all along, continually pointing toward the path that most genuinely belongs to you. Once you stop resisting that direction, once the masks created by fear begin falling away and your authentic self is finally allowed to exist without apology, everything around you starts responding differently. Your presence changes before your circumstances do. Others sense your authenticity in ways they cannot fully explain. Conversations begin finding you. Opportunities appear that previously remained out of reach. Someone across the room notices you without understanding why. A familiar face from the past may unexpectedly return. Doors that once remained closed begin opening with surprising ease. These moments do not occur because the heavens arbitrarily decide to reward you. They emerge because you have become emotionally prepared to recognize and receive what has been waiting for you. Today, on July 2nd, the portal stands open. The choice of how to respond belongs entirely to you. Whatever longing you have quietly carried in silence, whatever truth you have admitted only to yourself before, immediately trying to forget it, deserves your attention now. It returns with greater strength because it is asking to be acknowledged rather than hidden. The only question that remains is whether you will welcome it with the courage, honesty, and trust that this extraordinary moment asks of you. If this message resonated with your journey, thank you for sharing this time with me. I truly appreciate your attention and your willingness to explore these astrological insights together. If you found value in today's discussion and would like to continue receiving future guidance, I invite you to subscribe and become part of this growing community. I would also love to hear your thoughts and personal experiences in the comments, because every journey adds another layer of understanding to the conversation. Until we meet again, take good care of yourself, continue following your inner truth, and stay connected for more explorations of the wisdom written across the sky.